But you got to sit down. You got to be like, okay, we have this Maserati of a quarterback, right? We have a superstar. Maybe we should give him a chance to not die. Maybe we should give him a chance to not be brought through the ringer every time he turns the ball over because he has to play hero ball constantly. Maybe we can go back to the X's and O's a little bit and run the damn ball. Alrighty, welcome everybody back to another video here on the channel. If you don't know who I am by now, my name is David. I also go by Miller Football, and I am currently doing a series here on this channel where I am going through all 32 teams in depth leading up to the 2023 NFL season. And because I am only a Chicago Bears fan and not a fan of the 31 other teams, I have been recruiting fans of the teams that we're going to be talking about to sit down and talk about those teams, kind of give their in-depth personal insight. However, and very ironically, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills today, and I couldn't find a single Bills fan willing to come on here, which is incredibly ironic given the fact that it is one of the loudest and most passionate fan bases in football. So to combat that, we have my boy Patrick, also known as nohuddlenfl, who's been in a couple of these and disgusts me because he has no true allegiances and no real favorite team. So I guess it works out because he's like a little malleable security blanket for me whenever I can't find fans. But before we jump into this, Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm chilling. I'm wearing the Paul Posluszny because I have like 20 different jerseys for 20 different teams, right? And for whatever reason, even though I live in New York, I do not have a Bills jersey. And this is the closest thing I got. This guy did play for the Bills. Was pretty damn good with the Bills too. So I think, it's not like I'm wearing some guy that doesn't have any relevance to this.
Yeah, it's not like you're wearing a Kiko Alonso.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not over here wearing like a Nathan Peterman jersey, although Nathan Peterman's the GOAT.
Bears legend Nathan Peterman.
Yeah. I also don't feel like I get enough opportunities to flex this jersey because it's one of my favorites, because Posluszny's the GOAT. So is any linebacker with long hair like that. That's why I love being on that Lions preview to talk about my boy Anzalone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I also tried to, match a little bit. I'm wearing a Rage Against the Machine shirt, and, they have a song called Bulls on Parade. And I heard, Bulls, Bills on Parade. Doesn't really work because I'm pretty sure the Texans literally used Bulls on Parade as like a walkout song for the first half of their existence. So I should have worn it for my Texans video. But you know what? It's red, and the Bills have red in them. So good enough for me.
That's almost as much of a stretch as my Aaron Donald for the Chargers pick.
It is. It is a stretch. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't actually plan it. I just wanted to act like I did. I just threw this on because it was the first shirt I saw. And then I was like, I can make a joke out of this. And it didn't land. So I'm just going to expose myself now. With that being said, speaking of exposure, something that I'm very worried about for the Bills is their pass rush getting exposed this year. And the primary reason for that is the fact that Von Miller, who tore his ACL last year, missed the majority of the season, and was greatly missed by the Buffalo Bills last year, is starting out the year on the PUP list, and we don't know when he's coming back. He might miss the entirety of the regular season, dependent on where his recovery timetable is. So just kind of to kick us off here, because I think this is the biggest thing with the Bills right now. How worried are you, and do you think the Bills should be about Von Miller not being ready for week 1?
Before we talk about Von Miller and how much time he might miss, I want to talk more about just who Von Miller is as a player, because I think it's the same thing with Khalil Mack, right? Mm-hmm. People kind of think, oh, this guy, Von Miller, he was really good at one point, and now I don't hear his name as much, so therefore he must be washed. He must be a non-factor. They must have really overpaid, and there's no reason that they should have gave him that contract. And sure, you could say that because of the injuries, but the reality is when this guy is on the field, he's still a really damn good player. And that's because what Von Miller brings is beyond just his physical assets. Von Miller isn't always beating people because he buries them in the ground or because he hits them with a really nice hezzy and he has really good bend, although he does have all of that stuff, right? The reason that Von Miller will beat you is because he's a technical savant All right. And that's not something that goes away with age.
Mhm.
So I do think it is a really big deal that Von Miller isn't going to be here to start the season and might miss the entire regular season, like you said. That's a massive deal because I think Von Miller still, when he is fully healthy, he is now, I didn't make a list, but probably top 12 edge rushers in the league when he's fully healthy. Like the guy can really put in work. And they did bring in Leonard Floyd to help deal with that, but Leonard Floyd isn't Von Miller. All
Mhm.
right. It's an indisputable fact. Although they do have your boy who you've really hyped up that could help
Mhm.
fill that hole. So if you want to talk about Rousseau, feel free.
Yeah, before getting into Rousseau, because I think that's kind of like the saving grace for the Bills right now, right? Greg Rousseau is kind of their only hope, right? Von Miller is such an underappreciated football player right now because I feel like he's one of the greatest defensive players not only I've seen in my lifetime, but ever. And I feel like him on an all-time scale doesn't get talked about enough because you figure this dude about single-handedly won the Broncos a Super Bowl by completely terrorizing and making Cam Newton's life hell. He is one of the most consistent pass rushers ever. He's one of the freakiest athletes as an edge rusher ever. You know, you talked about his technicality being a real big reason of why he's so dominant. But obviously, his bend is probably the best out of any edge rusher ever, or at least out of like the all-time greats. And that, on top of the fact that later in his career, as he's kind of started to slow down, he learned how to use his power and his strength to really win off the edge is incredibly impressive. And that's another reason why I'm kind of worried about him coming back from this knee injury is his bend, because this is the second major knee injury he suffered. And obviously, if your knees start to fuck up, it's going to make it harder to be flexible and really, get up underneath of offensive tackles. But we'll have to see with him, right? However, on the opposite side of Von Miller when he's healthy is Greg Rousseau, who is one of the more intriguing defensive line draft prospects in the last like 5 years, right? Because this kid is an insane athlete. He's massive. I don't have his measurables pulled up in front of me, but he's like 6'7", like 280 some pounds. He's fucking absurd in terms of size. And on top of that, his get off's incredible. His arms are long. Like he's got fantastic length for a pass rusher. The power's there. The overall speed is there. His hand placement's really nice. His eye discipline against the run is really nice. He's shown flashes as he's grown as a pass rusher in the NFL of actually being able to like put moves on offensive tackles. There was a clip I want to say it was against the Jets where he put on a really nice rip move that I was watching earlier today. And I was like, oh, okay. So he's not just an athletic freak. He kind of knows how to use it a little bit. He stacks and sheds really well, which makes him a damn good run defender. He's a better run defender than he is a pass rusher right now. And the reason for that is he doesn't have the consistency as a pass rusher. And that's kind of what you're hoping pops up, right? You're hoping that this year with Vaughn gone with a lot of pressure on him, he's like, okay, I really got to be my best self at all times. And he learns how to string these moves together and string consistent snaps together of getting pressure and getting into the backfield. Something that he has going in his favor is he's somebody that has improved every year of his career. Like just last year, he doubled his sack count, and I want to say almost doubled the amount of pressures he had. He had 8 sacks and 18 pressures in only 13 games, mind you. He missed 4 games last year. And obviously, he still has Vaughn in the building there to kind of mentor him and kind of give him some pointers. If he's looking for that consistency, who better to teach you how to be a consistent pass rusher than Vaughn freaking Miller? So, like, I absolutely love the upside of Greg Rousseau right now, and like I said, I think he can be like the sort of saving grace in this situation for the Buffalo Bills here, but I would be remiss if I didn't say I was very, very concerned about Von Miller potentially missing most of, if not all of the regular season, even though I'm super high on Greg Rousseau.
And Leonard Floyd, I think that's going to help deal with this. I know Leonard Floyd
Yeah.
is far from Von Miller, but it's someone, and I do think maybe you disagree with me here, but I think he's a starting caliber player.
No,
If
he
Rousseau,
is.
if Rousseau takes that jump,
Hmm.
you're still going to need someone complimentary to him if
Sure.
Von Miller is out for the season, and Floyd can do that,
Hmm.
right? So I think there's no scenario where their edge rusher duo is like terrible. If
Hmm.
anything, it's a little bit below average or average, and I think that's
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
I don't know if I'd say perfectly fine.
Well,
I think
considering that the player that you're paying how much per year, Von Miller's getting paid an
right.
absurd amount,
Yeah, no, I mean the
is
situation
out.
the problem isn't like team building from Buffalo's perspective. I'm not
Yeah.
questioning Buffalo's front office or anything. It's just the impact of an important player like that is being paid so much money not being on the field because of an injury. Like that's the problem here. Trust me, I no doubts about what Buffalo's building on their with
Mhm.
their edges. Like Leonard Floyd, like you said, good. Like in my opinion, low end 2, high end 3. If he's got to be the guy next to Greg Rousseau, then so be it. Ideally, you want him rotating in and out to kind of like take some of the pressure and some of the mileage off of Vaughn at times or Greg Rousseau or whoever. But those two as your pass rushers is fine. And if Greg Rousseau takes a big step, then I'll be singing a completely different tune. But Vaughn not being there is scary.
Well, yeah,
And
but
that just goes with not having any superstar.
that's always gonna be the case when a player
Mhm.
like that you're paying so much goes down.
Yeah.
My point, I guess, and it may just be me trying to look at it from more of an optimistic perspective,
Mhm.
but I think they prepared themselves pretty well for the scenario that Von Miller misses a lot of time by bringing in Floyd.
Yeah.
Having Rousseau taking that next step. Listen, they're obviously going to lose a step because Miller's out, but I think what they've done acts as a nice safety blanket for Miller being gone.
Mhm. Yeah. And no, I'm not bringing this up because this is like a Buffalo exclusive problem and like they're idiots. They didn't prepare for this player getting hurt or something. I agree. I think they did a solid enough job, but again, I would be remiss if I didn't say, "Hey, elite pass rusher just got put on the pup list and might miss the majority of the season." That's not an easy thing to overcome, is what I'm trying to say with that.
Yeah, and a key part of it is going to be your boy Rousseau taking that
Mhm.
next step.
Yep.
And you're expecting him to. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. It also would be nice for a guy like Ed Oliver to really take that jump as a pass
Yes,
rusher, but
absolutely.
it's hard to just put all that on him, right?
Yeah, well, Ed Oliver, the thing with him, because I agree 100%, he also needs to take a step up because he, much like Rousseau, really just hasn't had the consistency, right? You see him, he's an undersized defensive tackle with really solid athleticism. Like he can move. And, I think a lot of the reason why he struggled so much is just he's smaller than most interior offensive linemen and is going to get bodied by them physically. So you're kind of relying on him to win just with his athleticism. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. I think the Bills this year really need to emphasize, doing creative things with him, like putting him on stunts, having him loop around, things like that. Utilizing his quickness is more than just head up, taking on a guard, and more running around and getting freaky and doing crazy things. And you have, him and Greg Rousseau, who are both athletes like that can do that. And then to complement them, you have stronger guys that can kind of be the pin defenders in these type of situations. I think that's the correct term. I could be wrong there. I suck with stunt terminology, but the guy that's going to like kind of crash down and take on the blockers and allow you to loop around, right? You've got AJ Epinesa, who has really not developed as a pass rusher, but he's big and strong. That's what he has going for him. You have a guy like Leonard Floyd, who kind of the same thing, big and strong. You have Puna Ford, you have Daquan Jones, like really nice nose tackles that can kind of, or not even just nose tackles, because Puna can kind of rush the passer a little bit. Guys that you can put in to, kind of eat up space and allow guys like Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau, not that Rousseau needs it as much, to really cook on stunts and things. And I think that'll be big for Buffalo as well. To kind of counteract the issues with Von Miller being out, as if they just get creative with their pass rush.
And I like that you're mentioning these other names because you look at their depth chart on the D line, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a D line that's deeper than this one in the entire NFL. Just
I
all
disagree
over.
with that.
Who specifically?
Two other teams in their division I would put ahead of them: New England and New York. I think they both
I'm
have
not
deeper
just talking
defensive
about the
lines.
edge
I
position.
know. I'm talking overall too. I really like, especially New England's interior defensive line. I'm a big fan of.
Mm. I'm not too familiar beyond Barmore. They have Godchaux, Or right, he's still there.
Godshaw.
Godshaw. Wow, I really mispronounced that one, huh?
That was brutal.
It's spelled Godshawax.
Yeah,
It's
but it's
Chaux, right?
roughly. Yeah.
Okay,
There's an
I
X at
tried.
the end.
There is an accent. Oh wow, I was that far off. I know who he is though. He's from Miami. He's a big guy, and
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not saying he's bad.
no,
But
he
beyond
stepped up
those two,
last
who
year
do
and
they
looked
have?
really good.
Yeah,
Ah, shit. You asked me too fast. Let me pull up their depth chart
yeah.
because I
Because
remember
I'm just
we raved about them in the Patriots team preview.
maybe I'm just not overly familiar. But
I won't lie, a
the
couple of those
point
guys I didn't know going in, and I got sold on by the guys
the
I was
point
talking to.
is with the Bills, and hey, maybe there are teams that are deeper, but
Mhm.
those teams must be really, really deep at that position because you look at the Bills. Rousseau, we talked about. Von Miller and Leonard Floyd, we talked about. AJ Epinesa, you talked about. Shaq Lawson, another key player. Or not key, but I mean, he could be a key guy if they wanted him to. Kingsley Jonathan, not too familiar on my part. But then
He's just a special teamer. He played for the Bears for a little bit. He's a special teamer.
All right. But then it's mainly the interior for me that sells me on this possibly being the deepest D line in the sport.
Sure.
Ed Oliver, we talked about. Daquan Jones, having him, I mean, he's a guy that can really wreak havoc at times. And
he's a guy that completely lost them a playoff game last year because he was hurt and they had no idea how to stop the run without him. Yeah.
Exactly.
He is integral to the Bills defensive line.
100%. And that's, keep in mind, I'm a big guy on interior D linemen just stopping runs. That's who I am. If you're an interior defensive lineman like Vita Vea and you just eat up double teams all day, I'm going to like you and I'm going to like you a lot. And they have a couple of those guys that might not eat double teams all day, but you have Ed Oliver at 100%, and then you rotate him out for Tim Settle at 100%, and then you rotate him out with someone like Poona Ford, and then you also have Daquan Jones. Like a rotation of those guys, you're always going to have those guys at least 90% because you're rotating them in and out. That's really scary for an opposing offensive line. It's hard to run the ball against that. And all these guys are capable even as full-time starters, and now you're going to rotate them in and out, and it's really dangerous.
Yeah, just for reference, with the Patriots, you got Dietrich Wise, hella underrated.
Okay. Yeah.
Devon Godshaw, Chris Barmore, Daniel Ukuale, who is really good. Lawrence Guy, Trey Flowers.
Okay.
Listen, do yourself a favor. Watch Ukuale. He is the weirdest little like spark plug off the bench ever and would get a lot more PT if he was on another team. He's really fun. I found out about him recording the team preview, and he's fun.
I guess I did forget about Philly too. Obviously, their D-line.
True. I don't know how we both didn't acknowledge Philly.
Yeah, but with the Jets, yeah, sure, I might give you that. But the point is, the Bills' D-line is a really, really scary one, at least against the run, because of how deep it is.
Yeah.
Like, again, I have confidence in that front four without rotation. But now that you can rotate those guys with other capable players, that's really, really scary, man.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of continuing on talking about the defense, probably the other biggest, I don't know if I want to call it an issue or not, but the biggest change for the Bills defense is they don't have a defensive coordinator anymore. Leslie Frazier said, you know what? I'm taking a year off, and power to him. But now it's going to be Sean McDermott kind of running shit by himself with the assistant coaches. And Patrick, you're a big defensive X's and O's guy, as am I. So what are your thoughts on Leslie Frazier heading out and kind of leaving Sean McDermott out to dry?
Listen, man, what Frazier does, it's not like he's some big, I'm really going to confuse the opposing offense. Like, that's not what he does.
Yep.
He'll run a bunch of different concepts, and he'll run them to an insanely technically sound level. Like, he's very similar to, you as a Bears fan would know this, he's very similar to Matt Eberflus.
Yes.
In the way that he's not going to be some really, advanced X's and O's guy, but the personnel is going to know the scheme, and it's going to know that they're going to know it really, really well. And they're going to go through the perfect steps every time on a really consistent basis. They're going to read the right keys, and they're going to defend the exact perfect way that Frazier told them to. And I think part of that might be how McDermott coaches them up too. I think that's a key part of it. So I'm not going to act like Frazier's gone, the defense is going to suck now. No, because what Frazier does, we're not too sure that it's not partially McDermott. McDermott could be a key guy in all these players being extremely technically sound. But the point is, the Bills' defense last year was run to perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, too, because they run all these different concepts. They're not constantly running cover 3. They're not constantly running cover 2-man or anything, right? Or you call it cover 5, which
right,
a little bit
either
weird,
or.
but
It's the same shit.
No,
different names.
You're not wrong.
I want to say cover 5
that.
comes from the Saban school of teaching, if I'm not mistaken. That's just
Yeah.
the first. I just heard it described as cover 5, and it makes more sense in my brain to go cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, cover 5 than cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, cover 2 man, cover 6, cover 7, or cover 6, cover 8. I don't know if there is a cover 7. I've never heard of cover 7 existing
I never heard
before.
of that either. But
maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Point, they are very diverse. We don't know what Sean McDermott might call it, but they are very diverse in terms of the coverages that they run. They'll run a bunch of different stuff, but it's crazy because you'll think no matter what they're running, the defense only runs that because they are that technically sound with it. Right. And that's the really impressive thing from the Bills defense year after year after year. Even if the backups are in, they're still doing the perfect steps in zone coverage and going through the perfect reads. A new inside linebacker comes in, like the new rookie linebacker for them, Dorian Williams, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to come in and he isn't going to be abused. It's not going to be like teams just picking him apart because he's a rookie linebacker playing multiple different types of coverages, because the coaching staff does a really, really damn good job coaching these guys up. And I know I sound like a broken record, but that's really what is so impressive about this team. Just their ability to run a diverse array of different coverages while still looking top notch at it.
And the crazy part is, you mentioned being able to do that even with their backups, and they literally were doing that last year with all of the injuries they suffered. Obviously, we already talked about Von Miller. Micah Hyde missed a lot of time last year. Trey White missed time and then came back and wasn't Trey White. There were other injuries. I want to say Teron Johnson was hurt at one point. Like, there were all sorts of injuries. Jordan Poyer might have missed a few games. Like, it was a really beat up team, especially in the back end, and they still ended up being a pretty efficient defense. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the EPA per play. And to even go further with that, like, this is a team that took a cornerback in the first round last year in Kaiir Elam. And if you watch the Bills in like the first half of the year, Kaiir Elam didn't see the field a whole lot. And it wasn't because he was bad. It wasn't because he was getting outplayed by other guys on the team. It was just Kaiir Elam came over from a very man press heavy defense and didn't really have a lot of like the zone concepts and, a lot of the instinctuals, or not even the instinctual stuff, but just like the mental side of playing in the secondary really down. He was just kind of like, hey, the guy in front of you, stick to him and don't let him go anywhere. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you come to a defense that's like this, that's so technically refined, you really need a running back that can, or a running back, Jesus. I have a fantasy draft going on the side and I was looking at running backs. You really need a corner that can really, stick with that kind of stuff and learn that kind of stuff. And the Bills exercised it to the point where they literally did not play their first round pick for the first like quarter of the year. And it's insane how important that is. And I'm, like you said, I'm really curious to see how Sean McDermott's going to run the defense, given how, diverse and technically refined it's been over the past couple years with Leslie Frazier at the helm.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit different. Maybe they're only going to run one specific type of coverage more than they would run whatever else,
Hmm.
right? But it's going to come down to us waiting and seeing, right?
Yeah,
Because I personally, maybe you did, but I personally didn't look too much into McDermott before Buffalo,
I
before this.
didn't,
Maybe I
unfortunately. I
should have.
probably should have, but
Yeah.
I did not.
But maybe that more of the answers would lie with that. I
Probably.
imagine so. But I'm pretty confident it was a similar type of defense with McDermott.
Hmm.
And another thing too with Elam, like you said, it was a more man-heavy defense that he played with in college. And the thing was too, man was just a small fraction of what this defense is.
Hmm.
Because it's not just running man. Again, that's the thing. I know I keep saying it, but I just really want to drill it into your head. Like, Gus Bradley gets hailed often because of how well he got his defense to play just cover three.
Hmm.
And Eberflus is very similar. He gets a lot of praise because of how good he is at coaching up the defense in different forms of soft zone coverage.
Hmm.
But then Frazier and McDermott are doing an amazing job coaching up the defensive players, not just in cover three, in quarter, half. He's coaching them up at a really high level for every coverage in the book.
Yeah.
And that is really rare. I honestly have no idea how he does it, but he deserves a lot of praise for it because it's something the casual fan really doesn't pick up on. But when you really look at Bill's tape, it stands out how they're running all these different coverages at a decently high percent and looking amazing each time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I was watching a video earlier today, kind of talking about the Buffalo Bills and their team. And the guy I was watching, I'm not going to name names or anything because he's a pretty sizable uh, YouTube creator, was talking about how he feels like Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills coaching staff as a whole not only might be better off without Leslie Frazier, but like might need to clear house completely because Frazier and McDermott just aren't doing it for Buffalo. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on specifically McDermott being on the way out as a coach, but it was really interesting to hear that opinion because I've never heard anyone have anything negative to say about either one or try to place the blame on them for Buffalo's mishaps because I think, and we'll probably talk about that when we talk more about the offense, the mishaps in Buffalo and the issues in Buffalo lie more in just getting unlucky with injuries, as we saw in the secondary and pretty much the entire defense last year, and not being able to like run the ball and play like cold weather football, even though this is a team that literally plays in fucking Buffalo, where come playoff time, there's 6 inches of snow on the ground and everyone is about ready to die of hypothermia by the third quarter.
Yeah, the thing I find insane about anyone, and thank God I have the pleasure of not seeing that video in my life. Anyone who says McDermott, at least at this current moment, September 3rd of 2023, anyone that says that McDermott doesn't deserve the Bills head coaching job, they're living in some false reality because this team went 13-3 despite multiple injuries all over the defensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, not much of a run game. The O-line really wasn't too good. It was literally on, from a player standpoint, the backs of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
And even Mahomes and Jefferson, if they were on the same team, Mahomes and Justin Jefferson, wouldn't have single-handedly led their team to a 13-3 record without the
Mm-hmm.
right coaching staff. But when you
Absolutely.
have a coach that knows how to maximize, even if not them, even if you're letting the offense just do whatever Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs allow them to do,
Mm-hmm.
someone's going to have to take control of that defense. And the fact was, this defense last year, considering some of the stuff that was going on, pretty impressive. Pretty damn
Yeah.
impressive. And it was, as much as the offense was carried by Josh Allen, and I know we're going to get to the offense at some point, and you're going to hear me reinforce that point a little bit. As much as that offense was completely carried by Josh Allen, that defense was completely carried by Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, quite honestly. But kind of moving off of that and getting into the numbers so we can actually get to the offense. And we'll start with the defense just because we already pretty much talked about it. We can just rattle those off.
Yeah.
This is a team that went 13-3 last year, was first in the AFC East, 7-1 record at home, 6-2 on the road, 5-0 in their last 5. No surprises there. We all know Buffalo was a damn good football team. Looking at EPA per play, this actually caught me off guard a little bit. They were 9th in rushing EPA per play, which was pretty much just because Josh Allen's an efficient runner. They were 2nd in passing EPA per play, 7th in run defense EPA per play, 7th in coverage EPA per play. And then in points scored, they were 4th in points scored with 455, 2nd in points allowed with 286, and 2nd in point differential with 169. So pretty much to be expected, right? Very efficient passing offense because Josh Allen is Josh Allen. Defense was good, like we were talking about for the first 30 minutes of this video. The defense was great, despite all of the injuries because of the coaching. And the rushing EPA per play, like I said, I was a little bit surprised that was that high, but I'm sure that's just a result of the Josh Allen QB runs really, really working out.
Well, that, and listen, this is part of the reason I don't love EPA, especially
Okay.
EPA without much context. The context here that makes that EPA so much higher than it should be is a lot of light boxes.
That's
And that's
fair.
part of the reason
That's a good
that
point.
the passing offense had a couple of moments of, just a
Mhm.
little bit of, I'm trying to think of the right word here, a little bit of slow points
Mhm.
every now and then. You would see that because there wasn't a run game to go off of. And even if the EPA says otherwise, let's be honest, teams weren't afraid of the
No.
run game. Teams
No.
were not even remotely afraid. And this is why I was saying going into last year, the main reason that the Bills are going to be a worse team from 2022 and forward is because they lost Brian Daboll. What
Absolutely.
Daboll did, the way that offense worked under him, it wasn't all on the back of Josh Allen, the way this Dorsey offense is. It was a lot more supportive of him. Okay? It wasn't just, here's the ball, Josh Allen, dunk it in there, make a play. Instead, it was, our rushing offense might not be very good, but we're going to make sure teams are afraid of it because we're going to rock some 12 personnel every now and then. We're going to rock 2 backs or something like that. They're going to pretty much force the opposing defense to stack the box. So even though
No.
the personnel isn't great for running the ball, the X's and O's are.
Mhm.
And because of that, teams had no choice but to rock a 7-man box every now and then. And
Yeah.
that would allow Josh Allen to work his magic instead of just shotgun spread personnel, 11, snap the ball, Josh Allen make a play. It was, okay, we're going to line up in a heavier set. Diggs is going to make a play one-on-one because they don't have the ability to rock a high safety or rock 2 high safeties in this play because we're going to be in a heavy personnel set. Now you make a play, Josh Allen. It was a lot easier for Josh Allen to function in the Daboll offense than it is for him to function in this Dorsey offense. And I don't think Dorsey's terrible. That's
Mhm.
not what I'm trying to say. But he isn't Daboll.
Mhm.
He is not Daboll. And it shows in how the running game, although the EPA stats might say otherwise, the running game isn't the same level it once
Yeah.
was. At least defenses don't treat it like it's 9th in the league.
it's kind of like we were talking about at the beginning. I can't remember, or not at the beginning, before we started recording, and I can't remember who we were referring to. But Ken Dorsey's like, we have Brian Dable at home, right? Like he's trying his best to be Brian Dable. He's trying his best to recreate the magic, and it just hasn't quite landed. And like you said, the offense is going to continue to, you know, not be bad, not be bad by any means, because it can't be a bad offense with Josh Allen. It's just not going to be where it was.
But you're gonna
And
have those picks because of the way this Dorsey offense relies on
mhm,
him, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, absolutely. And not to, or I should put it this way. You mentioned EPA without context, right? You know me. I fucking hate stats without context.
Yeah.
I hate it. So I just want to put it out there to anyone who heard that and was like, oh, he's just going to rattle off numbers. The point of bringing up the EPA per play is to give you like a blanketed idea of
Respect.
what was going on. And then the rest of the video is, hey, here's why those numbers were like that. And we dive into the scheme and talk about everything that's going on. Like the defensive EPA per play we already talked about. We talked about why it was high, why it was in the top 10. Because Sean McDermott knows how to fucking, or not, I'm sorry, not Sean McDermott. Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott know how to coach a fucking defense. And then the offense, the passing EPA per play is high because Josh Allen exists. Ken Dorsey knows how to mostly play to his strengths. And when he's not playing to his strengths, Josh Allen's good enough to just kind of take over by himself and cook, right? The rushing EPA per play is high because, like Patrick said, you're playing against a lot of light boxes, and the Bills just don't run the ball a lot either. So it's kind of a small sample size as well relative
Exactly.
to a lot of other teams. So it's some of those numbers, sure, they can be misleading, but I think for the Bills, outside of the rushing, it gives a pretty good overview of what's going on with this team, right?
I guess the point that I'm really trying to say is that if it's really the ninth most efficient rushing offense, I feel like more teams would treat it that way.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Teams just didn't respect it like they should.
Mhm.
But speaking of the defense, we kind of already talked about this, so I'm just going to run through some of the schematics of it, right? In terms of coverage, this team was, I'm going to hold my mic for a second because it's being very goofy. They were 26th in cover zero with 0.6% of their defensive snaps being out of cover zero. They were 11th in cover one with 22.9% of their snaps. They were 9th in cover two with 16.6% of their snaps, 29th in cover three with 26.2% of their snaps, 12th in quarters with 16.4% of their snaps, 9th in quarter half with 11.5% of their snaps, and 4th in cover five with 2.8% or 2.6% of their snaps, excuse me. So like Patrick said early on, very diverse defense, leans a little bit into quarters. It has like some Fangio influence in it. Now, none of the guys on this defensive coaching staff are Fangio guys. It's just a lot of people have taken a little bit from Fangio and kind of adapt what he does. And then in terms of blitzing, they didn't. Like I don't have the exact numbers, but it's Sean McDermott, it's Leslie Frazier. They don't blitz. It's just not a part of their thing. They're a little bit more into stunts, and I'd like to see them lean more into that this year, like I said, with Ed Oliver. But it is what it is. So jumping over to the offense, I want to ask this just up front because I feel like they've made some personnel changes that might allow them to do this a little bit more, and also maybe they finally learned their lesson. Do you think this is the year where the Bills finally run the fucking football?
No. That's not even I what personnel changes do you think really allow them to do that? Tell me that.
The big one for me is Damian Harris being brought in because he's somebody that not only is one of the more underrated backs in football, in my opinion, but is really consistent between the tackles and brings more of a power element to their running game that they truly haven't had. So if you're giving him light boxes, he's liable to break off pretty big runs. And if you're not giving him light boxes, he can still pretty consistently get you 4 to 5 yards a carry. So I feel like he's somebody that can help out a little bit there. And from there, it kind of builds off of that. James Cook can get a little more involved and, things of that nature. And maybe even take some of the pressure off Josh Allen running the football.
Well, so obviously there has to be someone else running the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's without a doubt. I do think Damian Harris is going to be their Devin Singletary replacement, but My thing is, I don't think he'll be much more than the Devin Singletary replacement, and I think
I
he's
don't.
better than Devin Singletary. But
I was gonna
I just
say
don't think
let's respect.
he's gonna be utilized like he's much more than
And
Devin
maybe not.
Singletary.
Maybe I'm being optimistic because I want to see more teams run the fucking football. Maybe that's all that
Well,
is.
so we had this discussion before, the two of us. We've had this on when Kincaid first got drafted, and we'll talk about that later.
Hmm.
We talked a little bit about how the Bills are choosing to build this team and how they're building it purely around throwing the football. And you're big on that kind of being a flawed ideology. And while I don't think it's the best way to build a team, I do think it absolutely can work. And I don't think it's something you should just throw to the side. The thing I think, at least, is even if it's a little bit harder, I do think it is possible. I'm not saying the Bills are Super Bowl contenders, but I think it's possible for a team to be built in a way purely around throwing the football and win a Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, yeah, we've seen it. The Kansas City Chiefs, where not to the same extent, but I mean, essentially the same idea, right?
Mhm.
So it's possible. I hate it. It goes against everything I stand for morally. But it's possible. I'm just saying I'm optimistic that Damian Harris is a good enough football player for them to be like, maybe we should give the run game a chance this year. Maybe we don't want our quarterback who's just a big, dumb, quirked up white boy putting his head down and trying to run through linebackers every other play, because we have seen this story before in Carolina and we saw the ending. It was very, very unfortunate, right? And I'm not one of those people that thinks Josh Allen's going to end up like Cam Newton. I want to throw that out there. But the risk is there. Like, it's not the most insane thing to say, hey, this could possibly happen, you know? So I, again, maybe that's just a little bit of blind optimism for next season and thinking that something could potentially happen with the run game to maybe switch things up a little bit. But just to give you an idea of how much I don't think the Bills' run game matters, for every single one of these videos, I have gone and I have found the run splits for these teams, right? How often they run outside zone, inside zone, power, counter, whatever. For the Bills, didn't bother. I didn't get the numbers, I didn't get the percentages. All I know is they run a lot of inside zone, duo, and pin and pulls. They
Yeah,
like
I
to
was
run the
just
ball
about to
between the
say
tackles, and
the
that is
pin
it.
and pull. The pin and pull, it's something they, for a team that doesn't really like to run the ball, they do that pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we'll get to a certain guard they drafted. He can make quite an impact when they're doing that. And I think their running game should probably, like, I think if they were to lean into running the ball more, could benefit them, but then they won't be able to lean into passing the ball as much as they are.
Well, see,
So
I don't.
because of that,
But the thing is, I don't think them kind of taking some of the pressure off Josh Allen is a bad thing. Like, that's the
I
thing. Like,
don't. I don't. I agree.
right. Like, I get that this is a team that it's built its identity around throwing the football. I totally understand that. But at a certain point, you have to say, look, especially after last year with Josh playing hurt for the majority of the season, you have to say,
I'm
look,
sorry about that.
no, you're totally fine. That is not the first dog that has barked in one of these videos. Um, but you got to sit down. You got to be like, okay, we have this Maserati of a quarterback, right? We have a superstar. Maybe we should give him a chance to not die. Maybe we should give him a chance to like not be brought through the ringer every time he turns the ball over because he has to play hero ball constantly. Maybe we can go back to the X's and O's a little bit and run the damn ball, because we have a guy that's really good at that now that we have not had. Devin Singletary was not a good running back. He's not that good. He is one of the most replaceable running backs I have ever seen. And I know that goes for a lot of running backs nowadays, but Damian Harris is not one of them. Damian Harris is a really damn good ball player. There's a reason why at the very beginning of free agency, the Bills were like, we're getting this man. We are taking him from the Patriots. He will be a Buffalo Bill this year, and that is the end of it. I'm hoping that means that they are willing to commit to him running the football. And not only that, but running the football opens up the passing game. That is X's and O's 101, right? You run a little bit of
And,
play action, and it makes throwing the ball a little bit easier. It makes taking shots downfield off of bootlegs easier. And if there's one thing Josh Allen's really fucking good at, it's taking shots downfield.
And we talked about this earlier. Daboll used to help Allen a lot, not because the team was great at running the ball when he was there, but because the way he did the X's and O's with that offense forced people to play in a base defense and worry about the run game, even if Devin Singletary, who, like you said, is not a very good running back, was in to run the ball. And obviously that helped Josh Allen a lot. Now the Dorsey offense is a lot more, okay, Josh Allen, you get the football, now make a play. So I agree. It would obviously help Josh Allen a lot to have the play action game work and actually be able to get the easy yards without needing to do it through the air. For them to be able to play in the snow in heavy hurricanes at their home field without throwing it against the wind.
Yeah.
I definitely agree that would be very nice. But instead, the Bills are choosing to take this approach that I think will be very interesting to see. And we're going to get into their offseason and some of the moves they've made in order to help this approach happen. But they're taking this approach of, instead of building a run game to help our quarterback, let's just bring in some guys to catch the ball really well, and that will help our quarterback.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope it works. It would be really cool if it works. I know you think the opposite, but it would be it's an interesting experience. It's an interesting experiment, to say the least. No?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an interesting experiment, but again, it goes against everything I stand for morally. So, but speaking of the passing game, looking at some of the numbers from that last year, they were 21st in play action percentage with 24.3% of their snaps. Obviously, not going to be high because they don't run the ball. You have to run the ball to run play action, or else it's just taking a couple extra steps to make Josh Allen's job a little bit harder, right? They were 9th in average time to throw with 2.91 seconds, which is a little bit surprising because their offensive line was not very good last year. They were 1st in air yard percentage with 62.8%. Obviously, Josh Allen likes to air the football out. No surprise there. That would also put them in 32nd with their yak numbers. They were 2nd in average depth of target with 10.4 yards. They were 1st in big time throw percentage with 7.3% of their throws. That's kind of wild. But again, Josh Allen is Josh Allen. If nothing else, Josh Allen is, fuck it, Stephon Diggs is down there somewhere, right? That is his bread and butter. Then they were tied for 7th in yards per attempt. So, very, very much numbers that come with Josh Allen being your quarterback. That's how that works.
I also wanted to mention, I just noticed I haven't yet, something at least I noticed instantly with the Bills, who they played the season opener this year, right? Against the Rams. Yeah, I'm not just pulling that out of my ass. Yeah, I thought so. I wasn't 100% sure, but I was pretty damn confident.
Yeah.
In that game, and a lot of the time early in the year, the one thing I'll give Dorsey, and maybe it wasn't Dorsey, maybe it was just Allen taking that next step. And I also don't want to say that I'm a Dorsey hater either. I really don't know what I think. I just think Daboll's way better. But Allen looked a lot more surgical this year. No, at least the start. He was a lot more, okay, I'm going to put this ball where the defender can't make a play on it. Towards the end of the season, that didn't really look like it was the case, but it was a lot more, okay, I see the weak spot in the defense that I'm going to be seeing. Like, it was a lot more pre-snap reads. I know where to put the ball here before I even snap it. I'll still read the field, and if something changes, okay, I know who I'm going to. He seemed a lot more surgical with the ball to start the year. I'm curious as to what changed, but
he got
especially hurt. Was it right? I'm trying. Maybe it did directly. That could have been.
Yeah,
What
it
game
had
did he
to.
get hurt again?
I can't remember off the top
It
of my
was
head
weak.
exactly which game he got hurt, but injury would have to be.
It was around
At
mid-season.
least, yeah. You would have to at least partially explain what it was, because when he got hurt, they had to shift everything offensively.
but it was a lot more towards the start of the year where he was, and I'm not saying that he doesn't normally read the field. Obviously, he's an NFL quarterback and he's one of the best
Mhm.
in the league. He reads the field, but he was a lot more, I know exactly where I'm putting the ball. I know exactly how to do it, how to time it.
Mhm.
I know how to throw with anticipation this play. I know the perfect way to execute this against this defense that I know I'm going to see. It was a
Yep.
lot more surgical from Josh Allen this year, and I was really impressed by that because you don't think about surgical when you see Josh Allen, but at least early in the year, especially in that Rams game, I remember thinking, "Oh yeah, this Dorsey offense is really, really good for the dink and dunk style that
Mhm.
Josh Allen isn't really known for." But in order to build a team purely around passing the ball, you're gonna need to do the dink and dunk stuff.
Yeah. And, maybe that's the issue with Dorsey's offense last year, why it didn't quite hit expectations is because Josh Allen got hurt. Maybe a healthier Josh Allen that's more surgical and can dink and dunk, like you said, will make for a better. I'm sure a healthy Josh Allen will make for a better offense, but I'm sure healthy Josh Allen will make the offense no matter what better is what I'm trying to say. Like it'll be improved in that aspect of the game. I think we'll see a lot less in terms of turnovers. I don't think Josh Allen's just going to kind of let it hang, so to speak, when he's fully healthy and can actually like make precise throws and doesn't just have to lob it up and see what happens. So it'll be interesting to see the shift offensively when Josh Allen's fully healthy and hopefully has a full year in this new offense. Because I completely forgot about his injury until you asked your question. Why do you think things shifted? And then it hit me like the dude's arm was all fucked up, all sorts of fucked up.
That's obviously going to have its impact on a quarterback,
Right.
especially a quarterback that likes to throw with the different arm angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something Josh Allen
Precisely.
brings. The elite quarterbacks can not just do the common drop back and, throwing the ball with the normal motion. They could do the sidearm fucking, oh, I'm running across my body, let's chuck it. And they have to do a completely different motion. Like, that's the difference between the current elite quarterbacks and the you know, mediocre guys.
Right.
And
For
Allen
sure.
does that, and his ability to do that is heavily restricted when he's dealing with some injuries to his throwing arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that's the key to last year's offense. Like I think a lot of it, a lot of the outside of the run game not being where it needed to be, at least in terms of frequency and things like that. Everything to do with the passing game, all the negatives there, I think you can kind of throw those out of the window for now until we see what this offense looks like with a fully healthy Josh Allen. Because I think it's really unfair to look at an offense critically when the most important part of it is having a big armed quarterback has that quarterback with his big arm being injured. It's kind of tough to really evaluate it fairly and come to a logical conclusion that isn't going to shift drastically when he's healthy. And I know I'm stating the obvious here, but I feel like a lot of people have kind of forgotten that. So I gotta throw that out there.
Well, the thing was too, and again, we're gonna get into the offseason and how they changed this. But in terms of who Allen was throwing the ball to, it was really Diggs and then mediocrity.
Hmm.
That was it. I mean, Knox is mediocre. Gabriel Davis might not even be mediocre. They
Hmm.
had Jamison Crowder competing with some other slot. Who was it?
Oh shit.
You remember it
I
was two
couldn't tell
slots.
you.
It was Jamison Crowder and but the point was it was
Yeah, no, I
mediocrity.
get you. Yeah.
It was mediocrity beyond Diggs. And if you want to take this approach of purely throwing the ball with I don't want to say basic concepts, but it's not like you were confusing defenses much.
Hmm.
You gotta have another excellent player, right? Like, look at
Hmm.
the Bengals. I think they're a perfect example. And yeah, they have Joe Mixon and can run the ball better, sure. But
Hmm.
when they need to just throw the ball a shit ton in a game and not even remotely rely on the run game, and they have done that since they got Burrow, it still
Hmm.
works, even though they're running basic concepts because T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Mahomes
Yeah.
might only have Kelsey, but then with that, he has Andy Reid.
Mm-hmm.
It's just with these top-notch quarterbacks, it's either you gotta give them a run game, that would really help, or if you want to take this really pass-heavy approach, you gotta either have at least definitely have an elite weapon, which they do. They have Diggs, but then with that, you gotta have either a top-notch OC or offensive mind, or a really good two.
Yeah.
And Bills don't have that. They have all
Yeah.
right guys, but nothing overly special. They definitely don't have T. Higgins.
Right. And you know, that's why, and I know I gave it shit when it first happened, but that's why the Dalton Kincaid pick was made, right? Because this team needed a true second receiving option. And at that point, arguably, he was the best one on the board. Now, maybe I would have personally went with a guy like Josh Downs, whatever. But Dalton Kincaid is going to be that for Buffalo, and it's going to do Josh Allen a lot of favors.
It was
And we're
Isaiah Kinsey, by the way.
of
It was
course
gonna
Isaiah
drive me
McKenzie.
crazy if I
Mhm.
forgot, so I had to check it. But
Yeah.
continue.
But Kincaid, I mean, we're going to see him line up more as a slot receiver than a tight end, anyways. Like you have Dawson Knox to be your inline tight end. That's going to be his role. So Kincaid is more going to just be an offensive weapon, and they really needed that for Josh Allen. Like you said, you need that second receiving option, and that's why Kincaid's so important and why they took him in the first round.
I am the major Kincaid pick supporter. And I don't know. Do you want me to save more of my thoughts for the Kincaid pick for later? Or you want me to just
Well, let's just use this as a transition to jump into the offseason, then we'll loop back to the draft.
okay.
Because we've got free agency to talk about still. Let's
Mhm.
not get too ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we won't.
So, starting out with free agency, obviously the first thing we got to talk about is the guys who left Buffalo. And I know the two of us have particular answers here, but from the losses for Buffalo this offseason, I'm saying losses and not free agent losses, so you can talk about the guy you wanted to talk about. What do you think was the biggest loss for Buffalo this offseason?
Leslie Frazier.
Yeah.
I mean, again, maybe McDermott will really help deal with that, but I find it hard to believe that they can continue to do what they've been doing on defense. That is really, really difficult. Once again, I find it hard to believe that they could just do that without their defensive coordinator.
Yeah. And that's totally fair. I mean, you know, we already talked about it at length. I feel like I don't have to go any
Mhm.
deeper than just agreeing, because it's tough when you lose a big part of your defense like that. And another big part of their defense they lost, that no matter what anyone wants to say, is going to hurt them in the short term. Now they've got some guys that might be able to step up and take over, and we'll see. But losing Tremaine Edmonds is going to hurt this team. Tremaine Edmonds, who is only 24, I think actually he might be 25 by now. He might have had a birthday recently. 24, 25, whatever. He's been in the league for the entirety of his rookie contract and started out as somebody who was just a killer run defender for Buffalo. And then last year, he really came into his own in coverage, and that made a big difference on Buffalo's defense. The instincts were finally there. He was reading the quarterback well. He knew where he needed to be at any given time. And losing a 6'5", 250-pound linebacker who was not only a thumper in the run game, but also really coming into his own in coverage. That was the centerpiece of your, or I guess not the centerpiece, but like the center, the literal physical center, as he was a Mike linebacker. Losing that, even though you still have Matt Milano, who was the more important linebacker in that room, is tough. It's really hard to overcome that, because not only was he good when he was there, but he's only trending up. Like I said, Tremaine Edmonds is still young. He's just now getting into his prime, and he figured out his coverage instincts. He figured out coverage, and that was the big gripe against him. You know, a lot of people, including myself, this time last year were like, hey, you got to let Tremaine Edmonds go. He's just a thumper. I think I literally called him the most replaceable linebacker in football. And then he came out this season and completely made me eat my words. And I swear to God, I'm not just saying this because he signed with the Chicago Bears. I promise. I was a Tremaine Edmonds fan about like halfway through the season. I forget what game I was watching, but you can go back on my Twitter. I tweeted out, since when is Tremaine Edmonds this good in coverage? Since it was something like that, or since when did Tremaine Edmonds become this nice? Like, he had a game that caught me off guard, and I went back, I was looking at the tape, and I wasn't talking about him as a candidate for the Bears because I thought there's no way in hell Buffalo lets this man walk, right? When it came free agent time for linebackers, my attention was on Bobby Freak and Okereke because I thought that was going to be the best guys, the best guy, that the Bears could possibly get. Because I did not think there was a world where Buffalo would let this man go because of how big he was for their defense last year and where he's at in his career. And they let him go. Chicago paid him big money. I'm happy he left Buffalo because I'm reaping the benefits, but it's gonna hurt. And I think Dorian Williams long term might be able to be a solid Tremaine Edmonds replacement, but it's not going to be this year. It's not going to be next year probably, and that's 2 years in your Super Bowl window that are getting ate up by, potentially subpar linebacker play in a defense that is so predicated by its guys being at their best and having talent at all three levels, especially with Matt Milano getting older.
I mean, let's be honest, right? There are probably 15, maybe only 10 off-ball linebackers that could play coverage at a starter level and defend the run at a starter level. Tremaine Edmonds is on that short list.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, playing zone, okay, that's cool. There's a decent amount of linebackers that could do that well. Playing man as an off-ball linebacker, it is unrealistic to expect someone of that size to be able to do that. And Edmonds can.
Mm-hmm.
And Milano, I think, was the better guy.
For sure.
But Edmonds, what he does, it's a more rare skill set.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say. And it's going to be difficult to replace him. It is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy they brought in, who we'll talk about, should help. And I don't think they would have let the guy walk if they didn't have at least 3 guys that they liked to replace him. But it is definitely going to be a devastating blow to lose a linebacker like that. That can, again, we talked about the Fraser/McDermott defense being very versatile in terms of what coverages they're running. Part of that is having versatile players. And Edmonds was definitely versatile. He could play man well, he could play zone well, and he could defend the run well. Off-ball linebackers normally can't do that.
Yeah.
Edmonds could.
Look no further than the guy Edmonds is replacing in Chicago, or replacing because they're technically 2 different positions. Roquan Smith, who has been talked up as like the next best thing behind Fred Warner all season, he can't even do that. Roquan Smith is small and gets washed away against the run. And that's the problem. Linebackers nowadays are either like in the body of a safety and they're really good in coverage, like Roquan Smith, or they're just a big thumper that's not that good in coverage, a guy like Devin White. There's not, like you said, there's not a lot of like that perfect balance. There's guys like Fred Warner, obviously, is the top dog. You've got Tremaine Edmonds. You've got a guy like Demario Davis, but he's getting up there in age. Levante David's kind of in that, and he's getting up there in age. God, I'm blanking on linebackers right now, but you get the point. Like the fact that they're not just all jumping to mine instantly should tell you, as someone who fucking loves the linebacker position, like I grew up. Well, listen, believe it or not, linebackers were my first love. Okay. Like I grew up, the first thing I was showed was a fullback. I've told this story 3 times in these fucking previews. The first thing I was shown was a fullback because my dad played fullback in high school, and I got into football by watching his high school tapes that my grandparents found and wanted to give to my dad to see if he cared about them, which my dad's not like some stuck in the glory days. He was just like, oh, this will be a cool teaching opportunity because he'll be more interested if I'm there. And it's not just some random dude he's never heard of. Right. And then I started watching the Bears. And if you know anything about the Bears of the early 2010s, Brian Urlacher was that defense. He was that team. So my 2 first favorite football players were my dad and Brian Urlacher. So fullbacks and linebackers are everything to me. I love linebackers. And to see what has happened to them in the NFL really breaks my heart because they're starting to get, in some defenses, fucking phased out. Like me and you have talked about Brandon Staley at length over the course of the time we have known each other. And you know how much I despise what he does on defense. And there's teams now that are, playing safeties in the box. But what it does is it takes away from that run support. There's very few safeties. There's your Jamal Adams or your Kyle Duggar that can play safety and also come up in the box and play linebacker, play like a linebacker at a high level. And there's a lot of linebackers now who can't even play run defense at a high level. So you have a guy who, like I said, is 6'5", 250-ish pounds, good in coverage, thumper against the run. Like Tremaine Edmonds is I don't want to say quite a unicorn because there are a couple other guys who do the same things he does, but he's an endangered species is what we'll call him. And it's just really tough to replace a guy like that.
And listen, there's a lot of reasons that the cover 3 and pretty much all forms of zone coverage have taken over the NFL compared to man. There's a lot. But the main one is that linebackers cannot cover some of these guys. Most of these guys, let's be honest, most linebackers cannot cover most tight ends in man-to-man coverage for a reasonable amount of time. Not anymore. Edmonds can, though. And that gives you, again, a lot of versatility in terms of what your defense can run.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know why I didn't realize, or why this wasn't a thought I had sooner, but you brought up, what you just said, where not a lot of linebackers can do that. Matt Milano can't do that. Matt Milano's not nearly athletic enough to be able to do that. Now, Matt Milano right now in coverage is a better linebacker, don't get me wrong, but that's because he's smarter. He's more experienced. He knows his way around a zone. He knows how to be in the right place at the right time. You say, hey, Matt, go lock up Travis Kelce. You're fucked. It's never going to happen in a billion years. Travis Kelce is going to embarrass you. Go a little bit lower. Go, guard Mark Andrews. It's not going to happen. Go to the next tier down. Go guard Chigakonkwo. It's not going to happen. Go guard Jelani Woods. It's not going to happen. He can't do that in man coverage. Edmonds was their guy for that, and now they don't have it. Now, again, they have Dorian Williams, who I think can, over time, be that. But right now, he's not listed as a starter. It's Terrell Bernard, if I'm not mistaken. And he is essentially just a Matt Milano clone. So now you've got two linebackers out there who really can't do that in man coverage, and it limits your defense.
I think that Williams is going to get, even as a rookie, playing time because even though I'm not confident in his ability to do the run stuff and some of the other stuff that Edmonds used to be able to do, the one thing I am pretty confident in with him is that he could play man coverage to the level that you would like to see from an off-ball linebacker in order to run like a decent amount of cover too.
Yeah, the only hang up with that is I'm worried he's going to get the Elam treatment where, he's not going to get a lot of playing time right away because he's a rookie.
But then who do you rely on?
This kind of stuff. And that's the problem. That's my entire point with this.
Okay.
They don't have an answer. Right this second, in my eyes, they don't have an answer. Now, I think, like I said, maybe after this year, as soon as after this year, as late as like 2 years from now, Dorian Williams can at least be partially what Edmonds was and what they need. But I'm saying right this second, going into week 1, their options are Dorian Williams, who, like I said, I don't know how they feel about just throwing a rookie out there because of how complex this defense is. And Terrell Bernard, who's had experience in this defense, but he's just Matt Milano light. He's the same type of player where he's really smart in coverage, but his athletic profile just isn't there to be able to man up on tight ends.
I think that there's a possible scenario where, and it sucks because it would be a tell, but they put Williams in when they want to run more of the man coverage.
And that makes sense, but like you said, I know where you're going with that. And then you put Bernard in,
yeah.
But it's the tell is able to be abused. If you give,
but then maybe you mix it up a little bit,
right?
But
then the catch-20, right? The only thing is, and I get where you're going with it, and they'll probably do something similar to this.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit, but they can't commit to it entirely.
Right,
exactly.
You can't commit to it, and even if you do try to mix it up a little bit. Do you not think Andy Reid's going to key in on that? Do you not think the Bengals are going to key in on that? They're going to figure it out.
Well, I mean, the Bengals maybe won't figure it out because I honestly
Joe Burrow will figure it out.
Okay, sure.
We'll put it that way. Joe Burrow will figure it out.
Well, and then here's my concern with Williams, and it's one of the main things that makes Edmonds so special.
The run
even
defense,
if
yeah.
he was a full-time starter, right? And I think that that's a realistic possibility. Even if he is a full-time starter, then when you run the ball, he can't defend the run like Edmonds could. Maybe he could play
No.
coverage to that level. He cannot defend the run to that level. And that's the concern. Because the thing with Edmonds that made him so special was that he was a complete package.
Mm-hmm.
In a league where finding complete packages at the off-ball linebacker spot extremely rare. And Williams might be able to fill the coverage role, but the reality is a linebacker should be able to defend a run. I'm not going to say needs to, because there's some guys that are starting right now that are only really starting because they can play coverage well.
Mm-hmm.
But if he really wants to replace Edmonds, he has to take the step as a run defender.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Williams has upside as a run defender. Like, he's a long dude and he hits hard. It's just the discipline really is not there, like you
I
said.
agree.
And that's something that Edmonds had day one. Edmonds, if nothing else, was a disciplined run defender as a rookie. And that's why, he made a Pro Bowl early on in his career, because he made a living just fucking up running backs. And then, like I said, last year, he really figured out the coverage aspect of things and became that complete package. And Dorian Williams can probably follow a similar career path. And I would argue in this type of defense, his role in the run game might be easier to figure out mentally than it would have been in coverage. So maybe he'll get there a little bit quicker than Edmonds did, because obviously it took Edmonds until his contract year to really get that figured out. But it's definitely, for the immediate future, I'm worried about the linebacker position for the Bills. Matt Milano's fine. He's going to do his thing. But whoever's next to him is going to struggle.
I agree. I mean, maybe they just can't really rock with the versatility. And that would partially be because Frazier isn't here. So maybe they don't even want to do that. And maybe that's why Williams is riding the bench right now. Again, it's hard to tell because they don't have a defensive coordinator. So we're not sure. They might not be the same identity. They might not be the same type of defense. And in that case, then maybe not having a Tremaine Edmonds won't really matter. But
yeah,
the point is they're limited now. Limited more than
Absolutely.
they used to be. And that is the big deal here overall.
But moving off of Edmonds, because we probably spent a little bit more time on him than any Bills fan wants to at this point.
Bears fans, though, are loving it. The main audience loves it.
I got to get my jersey, man. I'm so pumped for Edmonds. I love Edmonds. But looking at some of their other free agent losses here, we have Roger Saffold, who they replaced him. They'll be okay, but he did play 98% of their snaps on offense last year, which is pretty meaningful. Boogie Basham, I highlighted because he got traded at the very end, wasn't going to make the roster, so they just shipped him off to New York. Isaiah McKenzie, who you mentioned earlier, he's gone now. Devin Singletary, whatever. And then a couple other names here: Tywan Jones, Jake Kumaro, Cole Beasley, Bobby Hart, Tommy Sweeney, Jamison Crowder, Justin Murray, Jaquan Johnson, Greg Van Roten, and Case Keenum. So pretty much outside of Edmonds and Frazier, and I guess kind of Saffold, because he's proven. Still question marks on the rookie.
I mean, exactly?
I'm not doubting Torrance or saying that Saffold's great, but at least you knew what you were getting in Saffold. There's people that want to make that argument, have to at least acknowledge it. But pretty much outside of, we'll say 2.5 of their losses this offseason.
Sure.
They'll be fine.
Guard was a weakness even if they kept him, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice depth piece.
Yeah, for sure. But looking over at some of the retained free agents, some big names here.
Speaking namely, of depth pieces, you're going to name, there's 3 guys that I think are nice to have in terms of depth that you're going to name here.
Well, first of all, let's talk about 3 starters that got retained, or actually 4, and that's Ed Oliver, Tyler Bass, Matt Milano, and Jordan Poyer. I think all 4 of them speak for themselves. We've talked about Milano, we've talked about Oliver. Tyler Bass, one of the more consistent kickers in football. Jordan Poyer, one of the more consistent star safeties in football. A couple other names here, and I'm thinking this is where you're talking about with the depth guys. Jordan Poyer, Shaq Lawson, or I'm sorry, not Jordan Poyer. Jesus, I said his name twice. Shaq Lawson, Tim Settle, Dane Jackson, Jordan Phillips. How many of those are the names you were talking about?
So I shouldn't have only said 3 because All those guys really are nice depth pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But I think especially Taylor Rapp, Poona Ford, and Leonard Floyd. I think.
We're talking about who they re-signed, not who they added.
Oh, sorry. I apologize there.
This guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, kick me from the show already.
Yeah, but no.
Jesus, you brought this guy back for 4 episodes. Are you kidding me?
No, but like the reason I was rolling with it is because a couple of the guys I did just name are really nice depth pieces, namely Dane Jackson, who's like the best CB4 in football, because he can plug in for any of their corners at any point and be able to play their role to at least a solid degree. Actually, he might even be listed as a starter right now over Kyer Elam. I don't know what the vibe is there, but you know he's just such a smart, versatile corner that can do a little bit of everything. And then Jordan Phillips and Tim Settle, good depth on the interior of the defensive line, and Shaq Lawson, good depth at edge there. And then a couple other free agent or retainments here. God, you've got me messed up now. Yeah. You got a couple linebackers here in Tyrell Dodson and Tyler Matekovich, I think is how you say that name. I'm going to assume I've seen his name a billion times, and every time I see it, I get scared because I don't know how to pronounce it. And then another linebacker in AJ Klein, who spent like 5 minutes with the Bears last season. And then also cornerback Cameron Lewis and running back Nyheim Hines, who will not play this year because he tore his ACL on a jet ski, which is an insane thing that actually happened.
Yeah, that happened. That happened like the day before training camp or something, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's he had a nice return. Late last year, was it?
Yeah.
I think it was
I think
a touchdown.
He's
a nice special teamer.
Didn't he have like 2 crazy
Who the hell lights off fireworks on a random Sunday? Is September 3rd a holiday? You tell me, because
Labor Day is tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I guess that's why. That probably makes sense.
This moron. I'm leaving that in, by the way.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
But yeah, no, Nyheim Hines, I think there was a game, I think it was the first game after DeMar Hamlin. Like everything that happened with him, he had like 2 return touchdowns, or at least a return touchdown, and then another like crazy long return. Like he's a really good return man. Anyways, by the way, in case you forgot already, Labor Day is tomorrow.
Yeah. This guy.
Yeah.
You know, insult me for my football knowledge, sure. But insult me for not knowing American holidays, that's where I draw the line.
Well, you didn't know. You're a fake American.
Don't you dare say that stuff.
I bet you would have been a British loyalist during the Revolutionary War.
Well, at least our schools.
Oh my God. That's so for anyone out there keeping track, I just want to point out in 2 of our 4 AFC East videos, there has been a joke about 9/11 made and a joke about the classic British "will at least our schools come back" has also been made. Shout out to the AFC East for bringing out the worst in my guests. That's fantastic.
I've been on your show for the NFC North too.
Okay, right, and you didn't make a joke along those lines for any of the other divisions. It's the AFC East that it hits.
Something about talking about New York just brings the worst out of me.
Clearly.
Yeah.
But moving over to the third-party editions, go ahead, say your spiel about the guys that you forgot weren't free agent signings or forgot weren't retained.
Well,
whatever.
No, I just didn't know you were separating it. That was my problem.
Yeah. Well, you've been here 4 times. You
being here 4 times, I just don't know. You know, my dimension.
So either way, still skill issue.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about Leonard Floyd earlier. Nice depth piece, right? Someone that has familiarity with Von Miller. If he does come back, I'm not sure how much edge rusher chemistry is a big deal, but I imagine it's pretty nice to know the other guy.
Synergy with any teammate is pretty good.
Yeah, I think. Well, obviously that, but I'm curious as to they're on the complementary side of each other. Maybe, probably not, but like,
I don't know. Maybe they know each other's body language, so they know when one's going to go one way, so they can go the other, or vice versa.
Yeah, sure. So there's definitely some advantage to it that I don't really know, but Yeah, Leonard Floyd overall just a nice player, really
Mm-hmm.
strong, disciplined, contains the edge well, just a good player. Even if he was a starter, he's a decent starter.
Mm-hmm.
Having him as a backup, assuming Von Miller comes back, that's really nice, right?
Yeah.
Then Taylor Rapp, they aren't overly deep at safety,
Mm-hmm.
so adding another guy is always advantageous, especially someone like Taylor Rapp that has been in the league for a little bit of time, has proven that he could play the game at a decent level. Another guy who's disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
He's not someone who really gets caught out of position too often, so that's really nice. I mean, how much physical talent and upside does he bring? Not much, but he is someone who will play his position, play it well, and he won't really be a liability for
Yeah.
you. And having that as a backup is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then Puna Ford. He's
I
really
love Puna.
large.
He's such a fun person to watch play football because his frame makes no sense. He's what, like 5'11", 311 or some shit. Like his build is like something out of a Madden created player. And I loved this signing. I remember when it happened, I got so excited for Buffalo because, like we alluded to last year, when their defensive tackle, who Daquan Jones, I almost forgot his name. When Daquan Jones went down last year, they didn't have a real nose, and they got ran all over by the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's a big reason why they lost their playoff game. Puna Ford is like the perfect backup nose tackle, and can also sub in at 3 tech if you need him to, because he's not a bad pass rusher by any means either. So now the Buffalo Bills have depth with run defending defensive tackles, and that's huge for them because that means teams can't run over all over them anymore. Now they did lose Tremaine Edmonds, like we already said, so maybe it balances out, maybe it doesn't. We'll have to see. But either way, the interior of their defensive line will be able to defend the run, thankfully, thanks to the man, the myth, the legend that is Puna Ford.
Yeah, and they're going to be able to rotate so much, like we mentioned earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
still have capable guys out there. It's safe to assume
Certainly.
they're not as banged up as last year, and because of that, they'll really be able to take advantage with an extra big body like Puna Ford in that rotation, too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Some of the other free agents they brought in, Connor McGovern, I liked the signing a good bit. He'll be their starting guard opposite. I don't know why I said that like that. He'll be their starting guard opposite Osiris Torrance. And, he's solid. He's somebody that didn't get a lot of opportunities in Dallas because of the guys that were ahead of him. He was stuck behind some pretty good guards, but he started all of last year and looked pretty solid. So, at the very least, he's a solid starter. He's better than Ryan Bates, who would be their starter if they didn't have him. So, Latavius Murray coming in as RB3, sure. Kyle Allen as your backup quarterback, sure. We already talked about Damian Harris, David Edwards coming over, Deontay Hardy, Jermaine Ifedi's here. I have a deep disdain for Jermaine Ifedi. He's a fine swing tackle, but I hate his mentality and approach to the game of football. If you know, you know. If you don't, doesn't matter.
I was here the last time he mentioned it. Let's go.
Yeah. And then, of course, Trent Sherfield coming over from the Miami Dolphins. And I always make sure to include little bits of notes in my notes about the different additions. And all I have for Sherfield is more of a tight end than the one they drafted, because that is the best way to sum up Trent Sherfield.
Future Weddle answer, Trent Sherfield.
Yes, absolutely. But moving off of free agency, unless you have any other thoughts.
Nah, I mean, Sherfield, like you said, nice depth piece. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really all it was. They brought in depth guys. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Except
if you're
Damian
a
Harris,
player,
who is RB1.
yeah, sure. Like, yeah. But bring in depth guys as a team that is ready to compete and win a Super Bowl, especially a team that was injured to hell and back last year. Really
Good
damn
process.
nice. Yeah.
Good process. But jumping over to the draft,
Where you
we've
don't
kind of
think it was as good of process, but
yeah, we've kind of ran back and forth, bringing up different picks at different points. So just kind of to ease us in here, who was your favorite draft pick for the Bills this year?
I don't really know their later guys too well. But
Justin Shorter, Nick Broker, and Alex Austin.
yeah, I don't like. I'm not too familiar with those guys.
Oh, okay, fair. I thought you just didn't
Yeah,
remember,
no,
which
no,
wouldn't
no.
have been
It
too far
wasn't.
of a stretch for you. But Fair.
Wow. Okay, this guy hates me. Can you believe this guy?
I mean, you forgot Labor Day was tomorrow, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm too busy coming onto your show to think about the outside world. How's that? How dare I
Skill
prioritize
issue?
your content?
Skill issue?
Jesus.
I knew Labor Day's tomorrow, and it's my video.
Next time I'll focus more on Labor Day being tomorrow to remember to text you about scheduling today.
Well, I'm sure the next time we record a video together, Labor Day will not be tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe it'll be, I don't know, some other holiday tomorrow.
The next time we talk, you're just gonna pull out some random fucking holiday out of
Yeah,
your ass and then yell at me for not knowing. How
yeah,
dare you not know it's World Pickle Day tomorrow, you fucking idiot?
yeah, maybe I will. How would you not know when National Pickle Day is? Come on,
Because I
step
don't
up
like
your game.
pickles.
I'm not a
Pickles
big
are mid.
pickle guy, but you gotta know Pickle Day.
No, fuck Pickle Day. I don't care
Listen,
about Pickle Day.
I'm not a big lover boy, but I still know when Valentine's Day is. Like, you
No, I
just
mean
gotta
everyone
know.
knows when Valentine's Day is. They shove that down your throat when you're young. They
Yeah.
don't give you a choice.
When you're cramping, you gotta eat pickles. So like, don't really got a choice for that either.
No, I just suffer through the cramps.
Mm.
Cramps are
Yeah.
not as bad as the taste of a pickle.
Is it really that bad?
To me, yeah, I hate pickles.
Mm. I'm not, like, I won't actively try and eat a pickle, but
I
I also
actively avoid pickles in my day-to-day life.
Mm.
I get a Chick-fil-A
You
sandwich, I'm
also
tossing them
actively
bitches in the
avoid tight
trash.
ends that can't block, such as Dalton Kincaid, who I have as my favorite draft pick. Look at that amazing transition.
Real? No. Hold on. Transition aside, really?
Well, so U.S. favorite, not like which one I think is going to be the best, right?
Right. No, I'm fully aware, and that's why I'm saying, really?
My favorite player that they drafted was Torrance.
Right. And that's where I thought we were going here.
But
I'm not
I
complaining. Go ahead, do
I
your
hate
thing.
that he landed in Buffalo.
I mean, sure, but I
Well,
still figured you just
let's
want to be
address
like,
the literal elephant-sized man in the room.
sure.
Osiris Torrance, I love. He was one of, if not my favorite prospect to watch. But
Mhm.
him landing on a team that prioritizes passing the ball is the most devastating thing to happen to football since roughing the passer was established as a rule.
Real.
Like, I'm sorry that I want to watch the absolute behemoth of a man maul people instead of pass set. Like,
How dare you make big man go backwards?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to say, oh, it's my favorite pick because big man is big man. No.
Well, you were supposed to say it was your favorite pick because he was like your favorite player in the class. I just figured that was the
No,
default here.
he's my.
And then I figured you'd say he was my favorite pick, but I fucking hate that he's a Bill. And then you'd go on your little rant. Like, I figured that's the direction we were going here.
Well, no, but I like Kincaid at that landing spot. I
mean,
hate
that's fair.
Osiris Torrance at that. Like, is Osiris Torrance still going to be a great player? Yes. Is he ever going to get recognized because he's not going to be mauling people the way that he would be if he got drafted to, I don't know, let's say Pittsburgh.
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago. Like, no, he's not. And I'm not going to lie. I won't be surprised if Osiris Torrance retires with like 1 or 2 Pro Bowls and that's it.
That makes
I'd be
me
pissed.
sad.
It makes me sad. But
It's okay. He's going to demand his way out.
Oh, I hope so. I hope
Osiris
so. He
Torrance.
should have pulled an Eli Manning.
I demand that you trade me to a team that is worse but runs the ball more.
Thank you. I would have loved it. But no, instead he's
goes
pass
to
setting.
Imagine they just swap him straight up for Matt Bergeron. He goes to the Falcons.
Dude, like, I know that Steve Avila was a better scheme fit for the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Osiris Torrance can't really zone block too well. But, like, why can't he go to a team that wants to run the ball? It just sucks. And he fell so far for no reason. Him falling, I hated every second.
I think the big issue is, too, a lot of the linemen that went ahead of him were just more athletic. And I'm not saying that Osiris Torrance is some big lumbering buffoon who can't move, because he can. Well, don't get me wrong. But his footwork and his quick...
He fell because he can't zone block, and zone blocking is the
Exactly.
modern NFL meta.
Right.
Okay,
And that's
but
the thing. Buffalo runs a lot of gap schemes.
yeah,
They were high and pinning. He's going to be pinning and pulling.
But like they don't run the ball.
He's going to be pinning and pulling like 5 times a game.
Like you say that, but again, he would have never been drafted to San Fran. Never.
Exactly.
But if he went to San Fran, I legitimately think that he would do pin and pull more there and do more gap scheme more there than he would in Buffalo, even though their primary run scheme. Oh my God. Oh, that would have been amazing. I would have loved it.
Just imagine
if they got
Cyrus
Torrance
and Pat Ricard running at you.
Well, if they had him and Zay Flowers, this would be my favorite draft class of all time. And then Trenton Simpson, too. Oh, my God.
Oh, you mean that guy that sucks?
Yeah. This guy.
Dorian Williams better.
Blasphemy.
Nah, Dorian Williams
Downright.
was LB3.
So, I don't want to go on this rant, but every Clemson player had a bad year.
I know. When.
That's definitely a coincidence.
New defensive coordinator. When. Maybe just adjust.
You think
maybe
it's just a coincidence that every single player on the defense?
No, but Trenton Simpson and Miles Murphy in particular are just bad at football.
Did you watch the film the year prior?
Yes.
Okay.
But then in 2022, they forgot how to play football. So, unfortunately, they suck. Brian Bressee's the only one who gets that excuse because that fits my narrative.
All right. But anyway, I love Osiris Torrance as a player. I just hate that he's a Buffalo Bill. My favorite draft pick is Dalton Kincaid because not only is he a player that I like watching, but I also think him landing in Buffalo is like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who, again, we talked about it earlier. Josh Allen needs a complimentary top tier weapon. Kincaid can be that without a doubt. Absolutely. And yeah, he can't block well, but he's not a tight end. He is a different position with Darren Waller and Sam Laporta.
He's a fat receiver.
He's a jumbo slot.
He's a fat receiver.
Fat receiver is far more insulting.
But it's funnier. And also tight ends, because tight ends who don't block don't get like a cool name. They just got to be called what they are. They're fat receivers.
Why aren't they receivers that are a little bit bigger?
They're just fat receivers because it rolls off the tongue better.
Jumbo
receiver that is a little bit bigger.
Okay,
that's too many words. But again, that's too like official sounding for them. They need something like they are.
Guys don't deserve to be insulted because they're really good at a role.
These guys are like the Cletuses of the NFL world. Okay, they are fat receivers. They don't deserve a luxurious name. They deserve to be banished for their sins. Tight ends that can't block, for shame. Get them off my football field.
They're just receivers that are bigger.
They're fat receivers. Like, yes,
instead of getting the problem. So, isn't it? It's Belichick that apparently says this, but he definitely doesn't say it, and it's just people on the internet saying that he says this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge a player for what they can't do. Judge them for what they're good at. And Kincaid can catch the ball really well and run routes really well considering his size.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Does he play with the absurd physicality that you would get at a Michael Mayer? No.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to play the Michael Mayer role. He's going to play the Darren Waller role. He's going to play in the slot and be spectacular at it.
Yeah.
Like, I love Kincaid on a team that isn't going to force him to
be a tight end.
Yeah. Like Kyle Pitts. Are you gonna get mad about him?
No, because Kyle Pitts is actually okay at blocking when he's asked to.
But why are you asking Kyle Pitts to block?
Because he's a tight end. That's what they do.
He's a better jumbo slot than he's a tight end.
He's a tight end. But anyways, no, like jokes aside, I do like the fit with Kincaid and Buffalo. Like I think he will be very quickly the second most important pass catcher on this team. Like we were talking about earlier, it gives Josh Allen that true number 2 receiver. It was a good pick. It's a good fit. I just have my narratives and my core beliefs that he betrays. But he's a good football player. I actually don't think there's anything negative about Kincaid. It's just he can't block. But
Yeah,
since he's
it's
going to
just
be
he's
lining
not
up
a
as
tight
a
end.
jumbo slot, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the ability to track the ball in the air, it's absurd. I mean, if he was a receiver, where would you rank him among receivers in this draft class?
Oh, I don't know. Like 4 or 5.
For me, he would probably be 3.
Yeah, see,
I would have
I was
Najigba ahead of him. I would have Zay Flowers ahead of him, and then he
see,
would
I
be
was
3.
the hang up for me is I was a big Josh Downs guy. I had Josh Downs as my wide receiver 3. I adored Josh Downs.
I also like Josh Downs. Just I like.
So, like I said, it would kind of be between him and Quentin Johnston fighting for 4.
I thought we were both on the same page about Quentin Johnston being very bad at football.
He's not great at it, but this also wasn't like a great
He's not
receiver
great
class.
at football, but
it also wasn't a very good receiver class. So,
but you just said Kincaid is the same tier as him.
I mean, yeah, but you're also transitioning from I don't know. It's I guess yeah. So he would be 4. That's a good point. He would be 4.
Yeah,
We'll call him 4.
That was a little bit slanderous, in my opinion.
I
Too slanderous. You know, the Bills Mafia might get on you for that one.
But yeah, I think the Kincaid pick was fine. Like we said, it gives I know I've said it 100 times, but it gives Josh Allen that second weapon, and that is so important for him to have. And Torrance, to play a little bit of devil's advocate for you, I like this pick from Buffalo's perspective, maybe not for Torrance, right? From his perspective or the fans of Torrance, but from Buffalo's perspective, because you look at some of the top offensive lines in the NFL, and they all have one very important and overlooked thing in common. Do you know what that is, Patrick?
I can't say I know what you're referring to. I have a feeling I'm going to be pissed because you're going to say I would be like, oh shit, I could have got that, but
They have a tone setter. They have somebody who's going to come
I
out.
probably wouldn't have got that, but
Yeah,
yeah,
probably not. Because maybe that's weird to say.
it's
But
a
they
little
have
bit up to
somebody.
interpretation, but yeah,
No, they have somebody who's going to come out, punch defensive lines in the mouth, and when it comes to playing hard-nosed football, especially in January, they have somebody that is going to really step up for them. Philadelphia, they have a couple guys, but Jason Kelsey's the one that stands above the rest. The Cowboys, they've had Zach Martin forever now. The Lions, they have Penei Sewell. You look at the Chiefs, they have a couple guys, but to me, Joe Thuney's probably the one that sticks out the most there. Like, all of the top teams have a guy like that. The Bills haven't. The Bills have guys that are solid, like Deion Dawkins is a good football player. Mitch Morse is a good football player. Spencer Brown, we'll see.
no.
Yeah, like he's got the upside, but we don't know what he is yet. Connor McGovern, he's okay. But none of those guys are tone setters. None of those guys, you're looking at a defensive tackle and you're like, oh fuck, that's who I got to go against this week. He's gonna hurt. You know, Deion Dawkins, he'll lock you up if you're an edge. There's gonna be plays where he's gonna lock you up or whatever. But none of those guys are going to hit you hard and make you remember them. O'Cyrus Torrence is that guy. And when you get to January and you need somebody that's going to strike fear into defensive lines, having a guy like O'Cyrus Torrence is huge. And like I said, that's something that, again, a little overlooked in my opinion. I think more people should talk about having a true tone setter on the offensive line. But the Bills just haven't had one. And as long as I can remember, and Torrance can absolutely be that.
So it's not even that I think O'Cyrus was a bad pick for the Bills.
He wasn't a bad pick. You're just upset
not
with
what
the
I was
fit.
trying to say.
I
Yeah,
know.
I'm just upset with it because if O'Cyrus went to a team that really wanted to run the ball, probably like consistently all pro guy.
Right. No, I get
Instead,
you.
now he's just going to be pass blocking a lot, and he's going to be really good at it because he is a really good pass blocker. The anchor that he has is phenomenal. For those of you that don't know, anchor is the ability to just eat up a bull rush. just not move at all.
Mhm.
And he is really good at that as an interior offensive lineman. You're going to see a lot of bull rushes. And if you don't move because of it, then a lot of these guys can't work a second move off of it or just can't get the bull rush going at all.
Mhm.
So that is big for him. And it's going to be big for this team to not allow as much pressure up the middle because that was a problem for them
Yeah.
last year, right? Josh Allen constantly under pressure because the O-line couldn't block all that well. Osiris Torrance will absolutely help them fix that. But I think only really pass blocking, even if it's very often and he does it really well, I could see him making Pro Bowls. He goes somewhere else that runs the ball more. I see him as an all-pro guy.
Yeah.
Is he going
No,
to be
and I
really good at what they ask him to do? Yes. Is he going to be an asset for them? Yes. Is it very important that they bring in someone like this? Yes. Was it the best pick on the board? Probably. But it's still disappointing in my
yeah.
mind.
No, and like I said, I know you're not upset with the Bills making the pick because you think it's a bad pick or anything. It's a personal bias. You wanted to see him go somewhere where his strengths can be more utilized and are a bigger part of what he's going to be asked to do, and I totally get that. But like I said, I think it was necessary for the Bills to get a guy like this, and getting him late in the second round is a steal. The 28th pick in the second round for Osiris Torrance is nuts. I think we both had him as a top 15 player on our boards, if not higher for you.
If you ignore position value, absolutely, yeah.
Position value is a joke. I had a fullback at number one. Fight me. Um, but some of these other picks here, we already talked about Dorian Williams at length. He's a really good coverage player, needs to work on some of the mental side of the run game, but he has the upside to do that because he's strong. He has the length. He's a really consistent and like technically sound tackler. All of that stuff, fantastic from a linebacker. Just really needs to shift his focus, just really needs to get his mind right with the mental side of things. And then these last three guys you said you're not super familiar with, so we'll just kind of fly through them because I don't think any of them are needle movers or anything. Justin Shorter, just, you know, a dart throw on a guy with good size and good speed. Good backup for Gabe Davis if something were to happen to him. Maybe if you develop him right, can be a replacement for Gabe Davis because they play similarly, but nothing crazy there. Nick Broker, just consistent backup, played 4 of the 5 positions across the offensive line in college. So he has experience everywhere, kind of plug and play, worst case scenario type thing. Then Alex Austin, just a corner that played in a quarters heavy defense. Good athleticism, stuff like that. Nothing crazy there. So their first 3 picks I loved. Outside of that, it was all right.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of my
mean,
feelings there.
again, I looked to see if people were saying a lot of stuff about those last 3 because I was like, you know what, I'm going on a Bills team preview. I should probably watch a little bit of film on the guys. But then I looked and the overall consensus was, hey, good depth guy, maybe a
Yeah.
project. But I was just like, okay, you know what? If everyone and their mother is labeling these guys as projects or depth guys, I'm just going to assume that they're projects or depth guys.
Yeah.
I've been a little bit too busy to go back into scouting mode.
And that's
So,
understandable. Yeah.
yeah. So I've just been I'll look at my notes for the guys I already have scouted, and if I don't have those guys scouted, well, oh well. Those
Yeah.
first 3 I think are gonna be the real impact players from this class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. But moving over to talking about this upcoming season, you know the drill. Last question, 2-parter here. What are your expectations for this team record wise? And you can either give me a straight up prediction or a floor and a ceiling. And then what player are you most excited to watch on the Bills next year?
So 9-8 is my prediction for them. That division I just think is
Wow.
a little bit
Okay.
too strong.
Okay.
I have them missing the playoffs, which I know
Wow.
Bills fans upset about that. But Frazier being gone, Von Miller not being there for a majority of the season, I'm not too confident in Rousseau's ability to step up, and because I don't think the pass rush will be too good. And my big thing is I think their division matches up pretty well
Yep.
against them.
And
I
that's the
do.
big issue.
Yeah. And while I like Kincaid, I think some of the drama between Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen is going to come up during the season. That's going to make locker room morale worse. And I know it's stupid to try and predict that stuff, but I think it's really inevitable. I think now we're really downplaying it because the coaches downplayed it, but it's definitely a real thing. And it's going to come back during the middle of the season. It's going to really hurt them. And again, the big thing here is it's the AFC. They didn't get better, and if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. In my opinion, I don't think they got better. And if you disagree, I get it, but
no.
Losing Frazier's so big. I don't have confidence in this defense as much as I did in the past. Again, the Jets aren't the same Jets. The Dolphins aren't the same Dolphins. And I think the Patriots are a team that, even though they're not overly good, I could see them getting on Josh Allen's bad side. Like, I could see them getting the better of them.
Yeah.
Who am I excited to watch, though? I mean, listen. I know I talked about him when we were talking about the draft. And I know you don't like this type of player, but I love Kincaid.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think what he's going to add as a player to this offense, beyond just Diggs, it's going to be big. It is going to be huge for them. He's going to be like a big body catching balls across the middle for Josh Allen. We talked about that dink and dunk play style that Josh Allen seemed to be adopting early last year. Kincaid's going to be a big part of that. Someone with the catch radius he has, huge. The route running ability that he offers from the tight end position, really, really nice. He's a guy that I think could be an X factor for this team. I just think it might take a little bit for him to emerge. I know Knox could steal a little bit of playing time because not like you're going to rock 12 personnel all the time. Although I don't think that's a terrible idea. I'm not going to lie, because I really do see Kincaid as a legitimate slot receiver. I do. And maybe I shouldn't see him that way, but I really can't help it. Everything you want a slot receiver to do, he does it, and he does extra beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. I don't, like I said, I don't think Kincaid's gonna suck or anything. I don't like the type of player, but he fits well in Buffalo. So for me, record wise, I don't necessarily agree that they're gonna miss the playoffs or only win 9 games. Like, it's really tough for me to place them because of how good this division is, right? Like, I'm so high on the Dolphins and I'm so high on the Jets. I'm even relatively high on the Patriots. Yeah. Now, I don't think the Patriots are with the other 3. I think there's a clear separation, but I still think this is like a 10-win football team at the very least.
Well, that's a 1-win difference.
Right. And that's why I said at the very least, like, that's my floor. I think they can win as many as 14 football games because it's still the fucking Bills. Like, Josh Allen's still incredible. I know losing Leslie Frazier is going to hurt, but I don't know. I think 11, 12 wins.
It's a mixture of that. And I think I ran through their schedule, right? Mm-hmm. And if you want, I could go, or I actually can't because I don't have that saved. But yeah, I ran through their schedule and I just copy and pasted this from my preseason predictions because I'm not just going to change it up.
Yeah,
because I'm going on someone else's show, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had them at 9-8 because I look at how they match up against those other teams in the division. And even though I think they're better than the Patriots, I don't know. I think the Patriots get the better of them at least once.
And that's totally possible.
And then the Jets pass rush is going to eat Allen alive.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then even it's not like you could be like, oh, they're eating the offense alive, but our defense is really holding up against the Jets offense. No, because Aaron Rodgers is there now. Garrett Wilson, I think White is getting older. It's visible, man. Trey White, I'm talking about. I think he's starting to get closer to that area of cornerback age where you're just like, oh, it almost hurts to see it. Yeah. Right? And I'm not saying he's like trash, but it feels like he's getting to that point where it's not that Trey White anymore, you know? And then you go into Miami and he got Tyreek Hill. Who's guarding him? Even if
Right.
Trey White is still a really good corner, he ain't fast enough. He is
Mhm.
not fast enough for Tyreek. And then even if he is, okay, we have
Waddle.
Jalen Waddle on the other
Yeah.
side. Like, I think it's just the inability to match up against the teams that they're playing against really
Mhm.
goes against them here. And
Yeah,
for me, that's the big thing.
yeah. It's definitely tough. It's going to be one hell of a division to watch, though.
Yeah.
Football's going to
Like,
be great.
the Bills, it sucks because the Bills should be a playoff team. You would
Mhm.
like to look at this Bills roster.
I think
You
they'll
see a
still be a
top-notch
playoff team. I just think
you
we're going to get 2 playoff teams from the AFC East.
you see a
Or 3.
top-notch quarterback like Josh Allen. It's easy to imagine, playoffs.
Mhm.
But it's also a team that lost its defensive coordinator, has, again, some drama that is definitely going to uproot at some point.
Yeah.
Tough division. They've been so good for so long, but I don't know. It just seems like it's all stacking up against them. It's bound to. I'm not saying the window is going to necessarily close this year, but it's down to see a major hiccup,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. And that's totally fair.
And maybe it's just me being bored of the same teams being good.
Fair.
But I really do think this is going to be not the year that ends the Bills' runs, but a year where it doesn't look too good.
Yeah, and
Relatively.
that's possible, man. I mean, the Bills are just tough. They're in such a tough spot. But other part of the question I didn't get to answer yet. Player I'm most excited to watch, if it's not apparent, is Reggie Gilliam, the Bills fullback, who it took us forever to talk about. But unfortunately, they don't run the fucking ball enough for me to be like, wow, Reggie Gilliam's a great,
Well, he catches passes, no?
Yeah, and I know, yeah, they do some screen stuff with him, and that's fun too. But I want to see him block more. Makes me sad.
Yeah,
But
well,
no,
that's how I feel about Osiris. He's
yeah,
blocking anyway, but I want to see him
yeah,
move people.
yeah. But Reggie Gilliam, and then obviously Greg Rousseau. I've been talking him up. I think he's gonna have a big year. So those are definitely the 2 guys for me. But all that being said, I think that about wraps this up here. So before we head out, Patrick, if you'd like to do your little plug you've done for, I think this is the 4th time now, right?
Yep. 4th time I've been here, and then altogether on the YouTube channel, I've appeared. Did I only appear once besides
I
this?
think it
Yeah,
was one mock
it was
draft.
only
Yeah.
once. Yeah, it was just that mock draft.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Patrick Cipher, No Huddle NFL, at No Huddle NFL, no capitals and no spaces, right there. You see it on Instagram, TikTok, also available on X, Twitter, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Do not
At
call
No
it X.
Twitter, at No Huddle NFL with an underscore at the end. I'm doing that because you're the host of the show, so it's completely your call.
In my world, it's still called Twitter.
In most people's world, even the URL says Twitter. So, yeah, at No Huddle NFL with an underscore at the end. That is again at No Huddle NFL, no capitals and no spaces. Feel free to check that out. I've been posting a lot there. I have been searching through my own social media a lot recently because I've been trying to make up a website with like my portfolio for colleges. So, I'm kind of getting sick of looking at my own Twitter page. I hope that you all get to that point. But yeah, I'm going to be posting a lot on Twitter during the football games. I normally, when I'm watching the games, I don't know if you feel this way. When I'm watching the games on Sunday, I have my thumbs typing all day.
Yeah, I live tweet every Bears game.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, like he said, No Huddle NFL. You can check him out everywhere. All his links will be in the description down below, as well as my links. You can check me out, Miller Football, everywhere: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, obviously,
and the Goal Line Podcast, the space goal space line space podcast, available on Spotify.
Yeah,
check
he
that
has
out.
that. I'm in 2 different podcasts, Run the North, and then also one that we started fairly recently. It's entirely Chicago Bears centric, so I doubt any Bills fans are going to want to go check that out, but it's called Bear Down Boys. That's all in the link, in the links down in the description below. You can check all that out. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Make sure to leave a like down below. It helps out the channel a ton, shows you care, shows your support, all that good stuff, and I really appreciate it. And make sure to subscribe down below as well as, we're making that push for like 300 subs. We're at like 378 or something right now. Trying to hit that soon. We're going to be talking about football for the entirety of the regular season. Maybe I dip my toe into a little bit of Madden content. I don't know. We're going to experiment and see what happens, see what sticks, all that good stuff. So if you want to be along for the journey, definitely make sure to subscribe down below. But to everyone out there watching, and Patrick here joining me today, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people and you deserve it.